What is going on? Welcome to Truth Wizard, or welcome back to Truth Wizard. Either way, it is always good to have you. It is good to be here. Hope you had a good start to your week. In today's video, we're going to look at a subject that is really piqued my interest recently. We're not going to get too crazy into it today, but we're going to look a little bit into the cloning aspect. Got some cloning, some parallel realities. Also, a clip from a Jeffrey Epstein video from a long time ago. He's got some things in the files that I don't think are getting the attention it deserves, but I don't want to give too much more in the spoiler department, so stick around, watch all this with me, and before we get into it, do me a favor, hit the like, hit the subscribe, especially if this is your second, third, or fourth or more Truth Wizard video and you haven't subscribed yet and you find yourself back here, go ahead, smash the subscribe button for me. Please keep on coming back. We are trying to grow this channel, trying to grow the community, so I'd love for you to be a part of it. And with that being said, we are going to go ahead and get into it.
So Bill Clinton says this almost 20 years ago, but people still think it's too far out that there could be clones among us. And before anyone says that this is AI or something, you can go see this original clip on YouTube. He did indeed say this. And this was following the cloning of Dolly the sheep. Check this out.
I'm asking for a voluntary moratorium on the cloning of human beings until our Bioethics Advisory Commission and our entire nation have had a real chance to understand and debate the profound ethical implications of the latest advances. As we gain a fuller understanding of this technology, we must proceed not just with caution, but also with conscience. By insisting that not a single taxpayer dollar supports human cloning, and by urging a moratorium on all private research in this area, we can ensure that as we move forward on this issue, we weigh the concerns of faith and family and philosophy and values, not merely of science alone.
Mm-hmm.
So how sure are we that this moratorium stood the test of time, let's say? Of course, I'm unaware of any official cloning that's going on, but it is interesting that 20 years ago, he said, don't do it to humans. But let me know if you think this technology exists in the comments below, and follow for more.
This is why this is kind of conspiracy theory, but maybe also not. I don't know. It's like they were kind of being transparent a long time ago with it. They told you they cloned a sheep. Then they kind of made a mention about dabbling into the human realm of the cloning or not. But it just seems super unlikely that they just did it. I also do not recall any of this public debate as a nation in terms of if everyone agreed to cloning or was fine with the ethics behind it and on the human side of things. I was also a little young, so maybe there, were hearings and things that took place and, that was their public debate. And as usual, we don't really have a say. They make you think they're going to ask your opinion or our opinion, and really they just write the legislation and they're going to move forward whether you want it or whether you like it or not. That's been proven, countless amount of times over a long period of time. Anyway, it just seems like the fact they are quiet about the cloning and have been quiet, that for me, that is why I believe that it has taken place, or it is taking place behind closed doors, because you don't really hear anybody talking about it. And you haven't really heard anything about cloning advancements and it benefiting the people any whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Let me know what you think. I say they probably have been cloning people, but again, that's that conspiracy theory coming on out. But drop a comment. Let me know what you think they've been up to.
Cloning technologies have been developed to clone cells and genes, which in turn have been used to develop medicines, diagnostic products, and vaccines to treat heart attacks, various cancers, kidney disease, diabetes, hepatitis, multiple sclerosis, cystic fibrosis, and other.
Look, I know I was a little young when this conversation took place, but I don't ever remember ever very clearly hearing about cloning technologies finding cures for any of those diseases. I could be misremembering, but I damn sure don't hear about it now.
Other deadly and disabling diseases. The cloning of human cells and genes does not pose the same ethical questions as cloning an entire human being. And it really is essential that this important research continue.
We therefore recommend that the current moratorium on attempts to create children in this manner be continued.
But mostly, let me say again, I am profoundly grateful to the National Bioethics Advisory Commission and to Dr. Harold Shapiro for preparing this report on a difficult topic in a short period of time, requiring an extensive inquiry. Nothing makes the necessity of that moral obligation more clear than the troubling possibility that these new animal cloning techniques could be used to create a child. And why I ask this commission to issue this report. One unanimous conclusion has emerged. Attempting to clone a human being is unacceptably dangerous to the child and morally unacceptable to our society.
Is it?
I want to make clear that there is nothing inherently immoral or wrong with these new techniques used for proper purposes. In fact, they hold the promise of revolutionary new medical treatments.
Oh, do they?
And life-saving cures to diseases like cystic fibrosis, diabetes, and
So here we go again. There's a life-saving cure behind these cloning techniques. Where? Where are these life-saving cures for all these diseases?
cancer, better crops and stronger livestock. This legislation, therefore, will not prohibit the use of these techniques to clone DNA in cells, and it will not ban the cloning of animals. It will ensure that we do not fall prey to the temptation to replicate ourselves at the expense of those beliefs and the lives of innocent children we would produce. And the lives of innocent children we would produce. And the lives of innocent children we would produce.
When he mentioned crops and livestock. So the whole crop situation, I think we're already aware of that, right? I think that qualifies as the GMO situation, genetically modified organism. Am I thinking of that correctly? And that includes them growing foods, things of that nature. We've seen the videos, the rubbery fruits, funky looking meat, stuff like that. Maybe the meat's 3D printed. I don't know. Maybe it's, genetically modified meat, which goes to what he said, livestock. So hear this out. Hearing him say that, this kind of hits me that there's also videos online of people talking about, or asking the question rather, where does all this meat come from? When you think about all of the restaurant chains, all the fast food chains, dine-in chains, the meat available at grocers, all of it. How is there that much meat available? Well, if they are cloning these animals, they're not worried about running out of livestock, are they? That would make the most sense at this point. So I don't know, man. As far as I know, the official word is they are injecting the young livestock with certain, they're just chemicals to accelerate their growth, is my understanding. But it kind of seems like they would be just cloning these damn animals to ensure we have enough meat. And that would be still different than like the 3D printed meat, which we've seen a little bit more coming into play now. But what do you think about this? All of this is just insane. This is 1997. We still have no real cure for diseases, particularly the big C, cancer, that he mentioned. There is no cure for cancer from cloning technology that I'm made aware of. Now, maybe if you are the elite or you have X dollars, you might be able to tap into some of that. But all of that was kind of another just farce they sold people on. It sounded great. All these new technologies we're working with. Oh wow, we could use cloning cells to eradicate cancer. Wow, it's how great, little Timmy. It sounds good on paper, but as per usual, there's never a follow through in most of technology. And why is that? So I'm going to drop that there and we're going to leave that one right there. Comment, let me know what you think. Are we cloning people? Have we been cloning people? Or do we have the technology? But of course, they don't want that technology out because now it takes away a lot of the financial incentives they have in place for themselves and the system. Let me know what you think.
All of this, a lot comes to mind. Things we already know are possible. First, DNA is information. 4 chemical letters form sequences. Those sequences carry instructions for building and running a human body. Every cell contains this full archive. A skin cell carries the same genetic blueprint as a brain cell. The body is built from stored information. Scientists have measured how dense this storage is. DNA can hold enormous amounts of data in a microscopic space. Researchers have encoded books, images, and video files into synthetic DNA strands. The data was then later read back through sequencing. The information survived. DNA functioned as a long-term storage medium. This means biology already operates like an information system. The body reads, copies, and executes code continuously. Cells divide and replicate that code with high precision. The instructions remain stable across trillions of replications. Now we move into epigenetics. Genes do not run at full volume all the time. Chemical markers attach to DNA and influence how strongly a gene is expressed. Stress leaves chemical traces. Nutrition alters gene activity. Trauma can change molecular patterns. These changes can persist over time. In some cases, they can pass to the next generation. This process is called epigenetic inheritance. The experience of one body can leave a biological mark that appears later. This is where the idea of cellular memory enters the conversation. Cells carry patterns shaped by lived conditions. These are chemical signals stored in the body. They influence how genes behave. They influence development and response. There are also reports from transplant medicine. Some patients have described changes in preferences or personality after receiving an organ. There's no confirmed mechanism explaining memory transfer through organs. The topic remains open for study.
Well, first of all, naturally, it's going to remain open for study, But this is another classic case of people have reported this. It does seem to be a very real thing. It doesn't seem like it's very common that I'm aware of, but I have seen multiple stories about folks receiving the transplant and then they suddenly have memories that are not their own. Or yes, they now like or dislike certain things. I saw one about somebody even being able to speak, I believe it was a different language or having some mild knowledge of a new language that that person did not speak prior to. Very odd. But naturally, I'm sure they would just tell us. As always, it's just our imagination, man. We're just imagining it. Everything is just an illusion. It's always our imagination. Sure.
At the same time, neuroscience maps memory to physical changes in the brain. Neural networks store information through synaptic modification. Learning reshapes connections between neurons. Protein synthesis changes in response to experience. Memory leaves a biological footprint in brain tissue. Synthetic biology expands the picture further. Scientists can edit genes with targeted tools. DNA sequences can be inserted, removed, or rewritten. Cells can be programmed to respond to specific signals. Genetic circuits can be designed to execute defined tasks. Biology is now a programmable platform. Now that we've talked about all of that, let's watch the next clip.
What they do is condense all matter back to light. It's kind of like what we're doing here, condensing everything down to a CD.
Okay.
And then we take that CD and then remanifest it. And that's what they're doing now. They're making holograms. If you go to Disney World, for instance, down there in the Haunted Mansion, you see the hologram, right? Oh, you know how to make a hologram. Well, our scientists have learned how to make people.
Well, actually, we just interviewed John Lear, and he was talking about being in an audience in which they were given a lecture by a guy that they thought was real and found out later he was a hologram.
Well, it's a synthetic. A synthetics, when you touch their skin, it feels like plastic.
George.
All right, time out. So she says she interviewed a guy, John Lear. he being John, claims he's in the audience watching a hologram give a presentation. And then the other guy fires back and says he's a synthetic. And you could tell by how the skin feels. So is that a clone? Or are we talking about like robotics? I wonder if you can elaborate on the synthetic part. Very interesting.
Is mentioning that we also are holograms, and he builds that idea step by step. He starts from a biblical reference, from the line in the Gospel of John that says, "In the beginning was the Word." In his interpretation, the word itself points to something deeper, because before any word can exist, there must first be thought. Words are thoughts spoken aloud. When people pray, they are directing thought outward. When they meditate, they're attempting to receive thought. From this perspective, thought becomes the primary layer of reality. He then links thought to what many would call God, or to the creative force behind existence. Creation is described as something that unfolds across dimensions, manifesting at different levels. What we experience here in this physical dimension is presented as one layer of that manifestation. This layer is described as a hologram, an organized projection that feels solid and stable from the inside. Within this framework, the human body is understood as vibration structured into form. Light is vibration. Vibration is frequency. Matter appears solid because the vibrational pattern remains consistent. The body holds its shape because something organizes and stabilizes that pattern. In this model, that organizing principle is the soul. He refers to the old claim that the soul weighs 22 grams and connects this idea to hydrogen as a fundamental element in the universe. In his view, the body is a temporary projection shaped by thought, sustained by vibration, and animated by what he calls the soul.
Now, Carrie, using you as an example, if you're nothing more than a hologram of condensed light, how do I affect that condensed light? Well, we can affect it by the lights, right? If I put you, well, we don't have any in this room, but I put you under fluorescent fixtures, it will cause this physical being to be very weak.
Right.
I can also affect it by thought. Mm-hmm. We can make you weak. You've probably seen my demonstrations on how to make you weak, or have you? Let me show you. Can I use you as a demonstration?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm going to do is...
You're going to do that, the arm thing?
Yeah, I'm going to do the arm thing, because you're going to hold it out.
Okay,
We'll use... Now, what I'm doing is, your arm is a kinesiology bit, basically holding energy. Okay, now, you hold it up, right? We're going down. Okay, now, I'm going to do is cut your energy line, which I just did. What happened to your arm? See how weak it got? You can't do it. What we're doing is a combination of...
All right. I enjoyed the clip prior to seeing that. I can't really say with great confidence that I don't know, or I do know, that this guy cut her energy line. But it kind of seems like if you ask anybody to hold their arm out and then you slap it down, you know, they're kind of half expecting, maybe not really sure where it's going. So you're going to bat the arm down. Yeah, it's going to fall. And I bet you I could do that without having to swat in front of them first to cut their energy line. You know what I'm saying? Like this seemed a little bit, I don't know. I don't know about how I feel about this part. The rest of it, very intriguing, although I don't know much about genetics. So I think I understood the beginning of this properly. It wasn't too crazy, it seemed like. I mean, the most experience I have with genetics is from Jurassic Park. So I don't think that really qualifies for a whole lot. Perhaps in the future, I will get into maybe some videos more on genetics just because it kind of goes with the whole cloning prospect. So if you'd like to see some of that, let me know. If you have any insight of maybe who to turn to or where to look, also drop me a comment and let me know.
Humans came up with clever technologies, and we're too arrogant to admit that ancient people were actually pretty damn smart. I don't know if you've heard of the Baghdad battery. Oh, so there's apparently this battery from ancient Iraq. Yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah, they tested it on Mythbusters, and it worked.
The Baghdad battery?
You never heard of the Baghdad battery? It's one of the greatest,
oh my God.
Yeah, so basically, I think ancient people were a lot smarter than we give them credit for.
Find this.
You think?
What if, there it is, see? What if
2,000-year-old artifact found in Iraq that is hypothesized to be an ancient battery consists of a clay jar, copper cylinder, and an iron rod. While some believe it could be used for electroplating or even electrotherapy, its exact purpose remains debated. Can you find a better picture of this, dude?
they tested it on Mythbusters?
No way.
And it kind of works, but it works better if they cheated on Mythbusters and they
Is this actually it right here?
Carbon. I mean, what do you do with something like that?
This was supposed,
Yeah.
the Parthian Empire it was supposed to come from was allegedly illiterate.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course they were. How would they not be allegedly illiterate? How is that always the case, too? Am I the only one that sees and that's noticed and heard that excuse for everything? That how our ancestors, how our ancestors, they're all illiterate. They're all morons. They can't read. They can't write. They were little peasant serfs, just, out there plowing the fields, manual labor. That's basically all they could do. They did good just to get by. There is some really marvelous architecture and some buildings that have been standing for thousands of years. So these illiterate morons were able to effectively start civilization, built things we still can't explain allegedly how they built them. But yeah, no, they were totally all stupid. They were just complete morons. They couldn't read, but I mean, their engineering skills were just off the charts. Oh, and don't forget, they supposedly built all this stuff with, little like spoons and bullshit chisels and things, like absolutely insane. What do you think about it? This is one of the things for me that the official narrative is just a pile of smelly garbage. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It just is. What do you think? I gots to know. Give me your opinion. Drop me a comment.
Why are there no photographs showing a flat Earth? One of the more bizarre and confusing questions frequently asked by globe believers. What they mean by this is, why are there no photographs taken from outer space which show the entire flat Earth in one frame, similar to how NASA images show the entire globe Earth? To begin with, we do not pretend to know how far our Earth plane extends outwards, whether it terminates with an edge, some kind of barrier, or reaches out into infinity. So when globe believers ask this question, they are making an assumption that the flat Earth is just some object floating in space, similar to the way NASA presents the globe.
Agreed. I think that's why this concept for most people, it's totally lost, because in their mind, they see this pie, or a pie with a rock bottom, or whatever the representation they give you, that's, I believe, is intentionally made for this to seem ridiculous and silly. People envision that flying through space. And the whole point is you're not flying through space. I don't think that's my belief, though. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch 3-4 videos ago, maybe 5 videos ago. I've got a clip of a guy explaining the toroidal field, field of energy, but it's represented as a spherical sphere of energy with the flow going through the center, downward, and then back up. So spherical in shape, which I think this is something that they always do, which is they give you some truth and then they just dump in the lies. A little more truth, bit more lies. Here's a little more truth than normal, and then some lies. So I think that we could be on a plane of existence, whatever realm we're living on, it is flat, but it's inside that sphere of energy. And that sphere of energy is where we get our electromagnetic energy. Could explain the radiation, the Van Allen belts, that kind of stuff. That's just my thoughts. I don't believe personally that we are on a sphere, a ball flying through the flying through the universe at 500,000 miles per hour. An unstoppable train just going one way through an ever-expanding existence. That, when you're a kid, it's kind of like Santa Claus. It sounds cool. It seems so wondrous. It sounds great. But as a grown person that can actually think creatively and critically, it does seem a little fucking silly. It just does. And then the goalpost always gets moved back if something comes up to challenge that narrative. And that could be said about us conspiracy theorists too, man. We'll move the goalpost. Yeah, I'm sure we will. Or sometimes we'll just say, look, I don't know. You could be right, but we all have our biases, okay? But what I don't believe is that we're flying 500,000 miles per hour on some ball going through the universe. And that these TV scientists can tell us all about these planets, billions with a B, billions of light years away. They can tell us what a planet is made of, the gas this planet is comprised of. But yet we still can't cure diseases here on Earth. That just seems a little far-fetched. So if they're lying about that, and it's very highly likely they are, it would just kind of make sense that the whole sphere, ball, earth bullshit is a lie too. And so for me, it just makes sense that you have flat plane of existence, some kind of a realm, a timeline we live on, inside a sphere of energy. And the sphere, though, is not like a visible sphere, it's there, it's around us. That would be kind of the firmament. That's the sphere of energy. You can't really see it, but it's fucking there with us in the middle. What do you think about that? What's your take on it?
Cartoon depictions of such silly flat earths floating in space, put out by the farcical gatekeepers at the Flat Earth Society and others. But these images do not represent the claims of genuine globe skeptics. We simply posit that through objective and empirical means, the Earth is demonstrably a stationary level plane, devoid of any curvature, which proves the prevailing globe Earth theory to be scientifically impossible. Why are...
Already said it. Leave me a comment. Let me know. Are you on the fence? Do you fully believe one way or the other? I don't mind either way, but I'm curious to know your take on this.
Did you know that one man built a castle out of 1,100 tons of coral rock, and he did it completely alone? Edward Leeds Calnan was only 5 feet tall, but he moved blocks twice as heavy as those in the Great Pyramid of Giza. No heavy machinery, no helpers, no witnesses. He worked only at night, in total secrecy. When people asked how he did it, he gave a chilling answer. I understand the laws of weight and leverage, and I have discovered the secrets of the pyramids. Did he use ancient magnetic technology? Or did he find a way to make the stones weightless? When he died, he took his secret to the grave, leaving behind a masterpiece that modern engineering still can't fully explain.
Is this supposed to be it for real? I have never heard of this. I've never heard of that guy. So this is pretty interesting, but is this the place? Does anybody know where, some context where this was built? Like the location, and then specifically within that location, anything. I'm gonna have to look this up some more, but if you have any knowledge, drop a comment and let me know.
Right.
Why don't we know when they were built?
Well, you can't carbon date it.
But what about the mummies we found inside all the pyramids?
I've never found a mummy in a pyramid.
What?
No, we've never found a mummy in a pyramid.
I thought the mummies were from the pyramids.
No, they're not. No mummies have been found in a pyramid. Maybe they were placed in certain structures later on, like Valley of the Kings and so forth. But like the Great Pyramid of Giza, no mummy's been found there. There's a giant box in the king's chamber that's said to be a sarcophagus, but it's not the right shape or size for a mummy.
Huh. So there are no organic objects found in the Great Pyramid, for example, that would suggest when it was built?
No organics, no.
Huh.
But there are strange things about the pyramid, like chemical residue at certain openings, shafts, that suggest maybe the pyramid had other uses that are really not acceptable to mainstream.
Of the objects that have been found in the pyramids and the tombs, are there any that we can't explain?
Any that we can't explain? I don't think so. There's a lot of objects that we are not allowed to see.
Still,
sure. I mean, look at the Smithsonian. I think has 1 billion artifacts. We're not allowed to see hardly any of those. They kind of just swoop in and just take those. So I don't think there's any unexplainable objects.
Can you petition the Smithsonian to see artifacts?
They're right.
Why don't we know?
Why is it? So let's just not be completely waist deep in conspiracies here, and let's just say the Smithsonian has a lot of artifacts, and unbeknownst to me, they rotate them out. And maybe they do. Do you know if they do? Let me know. But also, why would you not have, if you don't, a rotating exhibit, build more museums, show off these artifacts? It does seem they're constantly doing the whole gatekeeping thing where you can't see things, and you can petition them to see these artifacts, but why not just put them on display? It's a part of human history, right? Are you hiding something? It just looks suspect when you do that kind of stuff. Maybe I'm overreacting, but then you see like the museum in Egypt. They still have the basically fucking spoons on display that they keep trying to insist is how the Egyptians carved the rock out of the quarries. Like it's laughable. So you just kind of have, that's kind of my gauge of things. Like if they're showing you that kind of stuff and that's supposed to be their official explanation, it makes me believe that they are really suppressing and hiding the really good artifacts, the things that might solve some of these mysteries and riddles. What do you think? I got to know.
Proof that parallel realities exist, and science backs it up. Right now, there could be infinite versions of you, each living a different life. This isn't just a wild theory. Both quantum physics and metaphysics suggest it's real. The many worlds interpretation in quantum physics proposes that every decision creates a branching timeline. This means that right now, another version of you made a different choice and is living a completely different reality.
That explains a lot.
Then there's the observer effect. Scientists discovered that particles behave differently when observed, meaning reality changes based on attention and consciousness. If reality shifts when observed, what does that say about the world around you? And let's not ignore the Mandela effect. Millions of people remember events that history says never happened. Is this just a trick of the mind, or proof that some of us have actually jumped timelines? Spiritual teachings take it even further. The law of assumption suggests that your beliefs don't just shape reality, they shift you into a new one. What if the version of you living your dream life already exists, and the only thing keeping you from it is your mindset? So the real question is, are you choosing your reality, or are you shifting without realizing it? Save this video, share it with someone questioning reality, and follow for more hidden.
Here's a thought. We're just throwing this out there, just shooting from the hip, okay? So what if you are your consciousness, if you start changing your mindset and that enables you to jump to a different timeline where you exist, but now when you started thinking and doing in a more positive and successful manner, now you're living in another shell body, your consciousness uploaded to that shell, you start living that life, and then this shell is left behind. And that's why we have these NPCs walking around. I mean, that kind of seems like it's maybe a reason why there are so many brainless morons roaming the streets these days. Because, and the thing is, you don't always ascend, right? You're not always going to go to obviously a reality where you're successful and more happy. Maybe you go to one where you are, you're living with how you're acting here. So here you're an idiot, horrible mindset, constantly negative, low vibrational. And so now your consciousness transfers to a different reality in that realm. And so either way, you're left with just a shell of a person walking around. Like, what is it saying? The lights are on, but nobody's home. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of came to me truly. So what do you think? Is that a viable theory? Have you heard something like that before? If you have, let me know.
People care about the most about parallel universes is A, our versions of themselves exist somewhere out there, and B, can they ever visit these places? Well, the short answer is probably yes and maybe, but the truth is that I personally think we're moving between the different world lines all the time. Every single moment of your experience is determined by your internal state. It's almost like a navigational system. And your internal state literally determines which universe you're in right now. You think you just feel differently right now. Oh, I feel sad. I feel this. No, you're in a different universe right now. Literally. The thing that people care about the most.
All right. I can get down with his theory. I dig it, man. I like it. That's also pretty damn good. The thing about it is, maybe I'm just a little off base here by saying this, but I know he can't really prove that, but I don't think that most people can also technically disprove that is the thing. So there's just so many damn possibilities here. It hurts.
The Epstein files just keep getting stranger. In these emails, he discusses giving people supernatural abilities through psychological stress.
Time out. This part, obviously, I kind of know where everyone's feelings are in terms of Epstein and the files. How is this not being talked about more? This shit is wild.
Cloning people, and even designer babies, whatever that's supposed to mean. Let's start at the bottom here. This person named Gino Yu emails Epstein. He says, I'm in Paris and was about to write you and it popped up. She's a classic stage 3 in the model. Outlier who is intelligent, was traumatized when she was young, SA, and now gradually coming into her own and becoming self-realized. Starting to develop special abilities.
Hold on. I heard you, kid. we got to go to the top. I was looking at the top of this though too. The first email from Gino to Epstein: my intention for sending you the mail is to show that it is relevant work and that people are benefiting. People that would not normally otherwise fit in are learning to accept themselves, and that abilities beyond what society would consider normal are possible. New models are also possible, such as the alternative paradigms group are finding their way. New forms of knowing without knowing how one knows.
This trip, we found a lot more stories like this, though she is more on the extreme side given her biographical history. Epstein responds asking what prompted his email. Then this guy goes on to say the caravan trip has been really wonderful in meeting people that are stage 3. These are people who are developing a different perspective of reality and discovering the gifts they have. He goes on to say, I understand that you were not happy with the results of the Cuba conference that you funded, but I feel like the work is very important toward helping people identify and recognize the gifts that they have, which may not be accepted or well understood by society today. He concludes saying new models are also possible, such as the alternative paradigms group are finding their way, new forms of knowing without knowing how one knows. And in this one, somebody named Brian Bishop emailed Epstein saying, attached is the document you requested. It's the use of funds spreadsheet for the designer baby and human cloning company. This gets us out of the self-funded garage biology phase and the first live birth of a human designer baby and possibility of a human clone within 5 years. I pulled these emails.
Okay, let's time out real quick. So if these guys are talking about the possibility of a human clone within 5 years, that was in 2018. So then it might seem as if I am incorrect in the assumption that the government or other people have cloned people already. Maybe we're a little bit ahead of ourselves in that line of thinking. But not so fast, because if you rewind to the early 2000s, Clonaid, the Canadian company, I forget the woman's name, but there was the CEO. She was a female. She was on MSNBC talking about the first human clone that I'm almost certain they said the name was Eve. That was in a video I did several videos back. So at some point, either Epstein and this guy were totally unaware of that, which is incredibly unlikely. Like 99.9% they knew of Clonaid and what the hell was going on. So either she was lying or someone here is lying. Like, as always, something's not adding up here, you know?
Directly from the DOJ's website, they are 100% legitimate. This kind of reminds me of government projects like MK Ultra, for example, but they're not the exact same. However, the framework is kind of similar. Trauma, altered states of consciousness, reframing somebody's identity, and pushing the limits of what we think is possible. The Epstein files.
Yo, I know there is some stuff in the files that's twisted. It's sick. I don't want to take away from that much, but I'd be lying if I said I don't want to take away from it even a little bit. I don't know how this has not gotten more attention. This seems crazy. Like, do people really not care about this? It also kind of implies that what I've said in multiple previous videos, so once again, if you haven't watched, please go back at least 4 or 5 videos, give them a watch. I have been saying for a while, prior to making these videos, that we are more powerful than what they want you to know or what they tell you you are. That's my main gripe with religion, is that I feel as if they have you worshiping a false deity, first of all, A. B, they have you praying and hoping and waiting for some sign or to hear from somebody, which makes you basically not take action. You're putting your fate, your destiny, you're putting that into something else or someone else's hands. Why? Why not take action? Why not take control of your life? And that even means the accountability part of whether you're doing well or you're doing wrong. You're fucking accountable for your actions. I'm going to cut it off on that note for this clip right here. I think and maybe hope you'll follow what I'm saying here. As always, feedback. Let me know if that made sense to you.
Early 90s, Santa Fe was funded for the study of complexity theory.
It was math. So let's back up. So why did I buy a ranch in New Mexico in 1993? So that gives you some sense. So I would have funded it in 1990. Los Alamos, which was the high energy lab up in New Mexico, was losing all its scientists.
And Los Alamos, it was where Oppenheimer and where a lot of the nuclear weapons program, the bomb.
That's where the Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project was.
Yes.
That's Los Alamos, and you bought your property out in New Mexico to be near that?
Yes, because the scientists were going to be, they cut the funding for high energy physics. But the people who worked in Los Alamos would still be in the Santa Fe area.
They cut that because this was the Cold War dividend, right?
I don't remember exactly why. It was because, again, people thought that physics and high energy physics really wasn't that important.
Because that was about nuclear weapons.
No, it was because they decided, which maybe not right. This was the same time that Murray Gell-Mann came up with the term quark, Q-U-A-R-K. He picked it out of an old poem, the word quark, but it was mysterious. So they were starting to understand in the 90s that our world of the physics world, there was things that were just unexplainable. They called it strange things. You gave it a name. You gave it some characteristics. You called it had charm, was one of the terms. It had a charm. It had a flavor. It had a color. But no one, Mr. Bannon, understood what it was. Just like the financial system.
And you wanted to investigate that?
I wanted to see if we could build tools so others smarter than me could help investigate it.
And that was the beginning of your concept of the Santa Fe Institute?
Yes.
And Santa Fe Institute was founded to do study in this type of...
Can these areas of strange things be described by some form of mathematics?
So that's what I'm trying to get at. The foundational thought, the organizing principle of Santa Fe,
yes,
in the high physics lab at Los Alamos, right, which had been the headquarters of Manhattan and the Trinity Project, right, the bomb.
Yes.
So you're talking about the elite, the high priest
of physics.
Of physics.
Yes, sir.
Which high priest of physics, some subset of that is also mathematics.
Yes, they're both similar.
Project out. One of the tools you want to do is to make sure that in this complex system, the finance system, I'm doing a lot of this for philanthropy and a lot for the good of mankind, but also to be able to understand this complex system, the most complex outside of maybe our body, of the financial world.
Yes.
Did they create tools, or were you smarter in than the mid-aughts 15 years later than you had been then because of work that was done at Santa Fe?
No, it was great. But in fact, most of the money, most of my philanthropy in the area of, can you describe things that appear to be unexplainable by mathematics? And can you fund people who have new ideas? And unfortunately, when someone thinks they've been able to, there was a man, Stuart Kaufman, when they think okay, I figured out how to be able to predict the unpredictable, what appears to other people to be unpredictable. But my system, in those days it was called genetic algorithms, can predict what things will happen, and they all want to make money. So they use their systems to try to figure out, they know they have figured out the way to make money because they figured out the unexplainable.
Quick timeout. If he's talking about genetic algorithms, but people doing research to figure out what would happen? Is he talking about the predictability of humans, that they were trying to work on also figuring out if you do XYZ things, people will respond by doing ABC things? Am I understanding that right?
They try, they go bankrupt, and we start again. So with a cold view, what I've come to realize is that the attempt to mathematize, formularize, or what in your prior world, to understand what really is, in today's world, still unexplainable, is impossible. They're miracles.
Oh man, I'm going to keep this kind of brief to wrap this video up. First of all, if you made it this far, thank you. Second of all, I cannot be the only person that wants to know who this man was truly. Not for the reasons that 98% of the people right now are fixated on him. Who was he actually? Do you understand why I'm saying this? I hope so. There's a lot of reasons at this point, between the people he knew, had contact with, the money that was given to him, the money that was also allegedly given to him and allegedly he was entrusted with. Like, nothing about this man makes sense. And if you take just an objective look at him and the situation and other things in the files, like what we looked at, some things I believe start to connect a little bit better. And I'm going to have that discussion on a different day. But what are your thoughts? Like, I really feel like we are still clearly not being told some stuff. And I know there's redaction. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, I feel like some of the stuff in the files are an intentional misdirection from what really they were doing, what they wanted to do. And the biggest thing, what was the reason you were doing this for, and the why? Is it truly because you're just demented, deranged, satanic lunatics? And yeah, I mean, obviously that answer, sure. It's an easy explanation. It's a pretty obvious one. So yeah, that very well could be the explanation. However, let's dig a little bit deeper and let's look for a not so obvious answer. And that's the challenge, at least for myself. So I'm going to drop it off right there. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed your Monday night. Please come back later in the week. I'm going to have a few more videos up this week for sure. Some of it's going to be more Epstein related, by the way. Anyway, you have a good night. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, please subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.